Hello and welcome to another episode of the DTP, of course that being the Desert Tiger Podcast. I am your host here on the show. My name is Colton G, and today my guests are Timon and Ashley. They, of course, being the duo behind Toronto pop folk group In the City. And sometimes bad times help us remember better times. It's a circuitous path to happiness, to be sure, but it is the one taken by Toronto pop folk duo In the City on their new single and video, Best Time. Although it was inspired by the untimely and unexpected loss of singer Ashley Jane's mother last year, the song, a preview of the pair's forthcoming concept EP MaryAnn, chooses to celebrate life rather than mourn loss. This also happens to be the thing that ended up bringing both members of In the City together. Ashley Jane happened to be working with a non-profit organization that empowers kids through music. Composer Timon just so happened to be working in the studio that organization was recording in. Their backgrounds may have been a little bit different, may have been a little bit diverse, but once they ended up working together, the two had an undeniable energy and connection that they just had to continue to build upon. But of course, I'm going to let them tell you all the details about that story. We're going to talk about their 2016 EP, Changing Tides. We are also going to be discussing their brand new single, Best Times, of course, coming off that upcoming EP, MaryAnn. We're going to discuss the lyrics of the song and what is the story that the song is telling. We're also going to talk about the video for the song, which happens to feature home videos that were submitted from people all over the world. So we're going to talk about how they went about collecting and putting that together. We're also going to discuss some of their music that has been featured on shows like CBC's Heartland, Kim's Convenience, Working Moms, and CTV's Saving Hope, which, I mean, considering they're only on their second EP, that's pretty huge for a band like that, and has actually led them to have the opportunity to get a songwriting residency with the Slight Family Music Lab at the Canadian Film Centre, which is something we are also going to be talking about today, because I feel like that's a little bit of the music industry that doesn't really get dived into as much because it also happens to be the film industry. So we are going to be discussing all of these wonderful things, and I'm going to be playing you that brand new single, Best Times, halfway through this interview, so please keep your ears open for that one. It is a fantastic song, and I feel like it's probably going to hit a little bit of a chord in you. It might bring a little bit of memories straying forward, because that's what today's conversation is all about, is remembering the good times and using music as therapy. Because truly, to so many of us who listen to and write music, it really, really is therapeutic. So please, enjoy my conversation with Ashley and Timon of In the City.
Music, athletics, arts, and entertainment. The Desert Tiger Podcast with Colton Geschwader.
Alright, we are here with Timon and Ashley. They are the two individuals behind the wonderful group In the City. How is it going today, you two?
Very well, thank you very much.
Fantastic. And exactly what do you do for the group, so we can give our listeners a little bit of a background?
What do we each do in the group?
Yeah, instrumentally wise, what do you bring to the table?
So we both split everything down the middle when it comes to writing and production, and then we have our own specialties. I usually write the lyrics and melodies, and Timon's the multi-instrumentalist guy. So that's pretty much how the division of labor goes.
Okay, so he's playing the keyboards and the mandolin and everything else that you would be hearing in the background?
Yeah, so I play most instruments, but like for mandolin, for example, we have our friend Steve, who's part of our band, who comes in to lay down some mandolin usually. But yeah, I play acoustic guitar, play the bass, the drums, and keyboard, yeah.
Okay, so you handle those aspects, and then you have a couple other individuals that you bring in here and there?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, some session
And they're
musicians.
also part of our, they're a part of our live band as well. So we have a live band that we play with, and then we're sort of the core production team here.
Oh, awesome. I'm definitely going to have to ask a little bit about how the live show works later on here. But first off, I want to sort of get into how did In the City meet? How was the idea born? Where does Ashley meet Timon?
Timon and I met at a studio in downtown Toronto. He was working at the studio, and I was volunteering with some kids, helping them write songs, and they were recording them at that studio. And, you know, there's a lot of musicians working at that studio and a lot of musicians involved in the program, so we all sort of started writing together, and next thing you know, Timon was playing drums on one of my songs, and then we decided to give it a try to write a song together, and we realized that our two different backgrounds and ways of going about writing a song really complemented each other, and decided to keep writing from there.
Okay. You said that you were doing like some charity type work before then. So exactly what were you doing that brought you into this studio?
So I was involved with an organization called Camp Trillium, and they're a camp that supports children impacted by cancer in some capacity. You know, they've either had cancer themselves, or their siblings have had cancer, or they're, you know, maybe they've lost someone from cancer. So it's a camp, an overnight camp, and then they have sort of offshoot groups all over Ontario, and this was one of them that they offered in Toronto, specifically for teens, where these kids impacted by cancer one way or another were working to help them write songs, write their own songs. And it was like a couple month-long process, and we had a lot of different workshops, and then it all sort of culminated to recording in this studio in Toronto that, you know, was generously donated. Everyone donated their time. So that's where Timon and the studio he was working at the time came in. It was the studio that we all ended up recording the songs that these kids wrote.
Okay, so this just happened. Yeah. This just happened to be the studio that donated the time to allow these children to actually see their musical vision.
Yeah, exactly.
That's actually really cool. If you don't mind me asking,
it's a very wholesome start.
Yes, I agree, and I love it. If you don't mind me asking, is there a specific reason why you were working with this group? Like, have you yourself been affected?
Yeah, I have been affected by cancer. Yeah, it wasn't why I started at the time. Actually, I was a former roommate of mine and a good friend, suffered childhood cancer herself, and she'd been going to the camps as a kid and then invited me to volunteer, and I went and volunteered at an overnight camp for a week, and I just fell in love with it. It was so amazing. Everyone there was really incredible, and it was kind of like a place I'd never been before.
Yeah.
So I started volunteering by continuing to go to camps as like a counselor, and then they said, hey, you live in Toronto, we have this, you know, this writing program, we think you'd be a great fit as a musician. And then, you know, of course, life continues on, and, you know, several years later, I end up losing my own mom to cancer.
Wow.
So it's definitely something, you know, that the impact, you know, it can just sort of happen to anybody, and you realize, you know, how precious like life is, and places like that just get the cancer journey. So yeah, but that I lost my mom, you know, many years after I started volunteering for them. So, but yeah, it's just an amazing place, and to help people write songs about whatever they want, and to help kids express themselves is kind of the best.
Yeah, definitely. And then for Timon, like being in the studio, like how emotional would that have to be, like to have that come in and have all these people who have been through so much. Was that a little bit heavy for you at the start?
So the project that she came in with, I wasn't very involved with at first, so I wasn't actually aware of it as much. We got involved on her personal projects that kind of followed that whole kind of thing that she came in with after. But yeah, I mean, so in that sense, I wasn't really affected by that at all. I guess the kind of heaviness came in through working with her later, or like recently, working on our music that has, like, it's influenced by her own sort of story with her mom, which our single Best Time basically is about, and the upcoming EP as well. So that's definitely been a different kind of experience. You know, it's sort of like a part recording session, part therapy session kind of thing where, you know, you go through dark moments and heavy sort of times, and then you try to express that through your music in those sessions as well. So it's been a very sort of emotional and interesting time.
Okay. You guys said that you had sort of different writing styles, but they sort of mix very well. So what exactly are your varying writing styles, and why do you think that they click?
I think there's a couple different aspects to it. One of them is that we have different sort of tastes in music, just from a listener perspective. But then also, I think what Ashley was kind of getting at is that she is quite a story-driven person. Mm-hmm. So she looks at music and song from a story perspective, lyrically, but also melodically, and how does music impact the story, and vice versa. And I come from more of a production background. I love arranging and you know, finding just the right kind of chords, and just generally the music, and how also, I guess, in a way, how can music help bring a story out in the best way it can. And so in that sense, we really kind of complement each other.
So as to say, Ashley is more of a singer-songwriter type perspective, and you're more of the what is in production right now for like what is more radio and everything, where like you have more of like the core in the background and how to accentuate the things that are being produced through the lyrics.
Yeah, totally. Like, we divide our work. Like, I write a lot of the lyrics and then come up with the melodies. But of course, you know, like, that's just generally what happens. Yeah. And then Timon, you know, he studied production in school and has a lot of, you know, studio engineering background as well. So he's like the instrumental tech guy.
Yeah.
Producer.
Okay.
But we do really try to do, it is just like a big mishmash. Like, it all bleeds and we all have a hand in everything.
So you are in the studio doing your own thing at that time. So did the songs you were working on, did those immediately become in the city, or did you guys start writing different songs for the project?
Yeah, we were just sort of all writing all sorts of different things. I was working with a few different people, and Timon had his own projects as well, and we decided to try to write together on completely new songs. So it was born after that. None of the stuff that we were working on in the studio ended up becoming in the city, but actually the first song we ever wrote together very shortly after was on our last EP, which I think is pretty rare, to get together and write a song and it just automatically makes an EP. So we kind of knew from that first song onwards that we had a really good writing chemistry and that this was something different.
Okay. And was that EP the Changing Tides EP?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me about the writing process for that, and sort of what that EP meant to you, because we've already touched on that this EP is going to be touching a little bit more on your mom and everything else, but what was the idea behind Changing Tides?
Changing Tides, I guess that song itself was inspired by my sister and some health struggles that she went through. She's fine now, but it's basically just, it's the idea of like telling someone that it's going to be okay, because that's really all you know how to do at that time. So that specific song, that's like the motivation behind that. But I guess there isn't like a central theme besides for our first EP in the way that there is for our upcoming one. But there's, a lot of similarities sonically, and it follows a specific sounds and genre. But Changing Tides is really just the EP is the songs that we wrote over maybe a 2 or 3 year period in our one room studio. We actually kind of recorded that EP in like all sorts of different apartment studios across Toronto. We just kept having to move around, but it's a very like homegrown, organic process of us just writing in the evenings and wee hours and recording everything ourselves. That's basically our process. Like, we have to do everything ourselves, which is great because you have a lot of freedom. It's also a lot of work. So
Definitely.
You have to pay for it.
Well, there is a benefit and a drawback to a lot of doing things yourself. So but it seems to be working out for you guys, because you have a very fantastic sound, and you seem to have honed what you want that sound to be so far.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, first of all. We're very meticulous and have been more a studio project than a live band for most of the time. We do play live, but we're very sort of, I think the first couple of years were spent finding and honing our sound, and then kind of working on the EP and putting it out there. And it really was interesting to see what happened with it, because we were fairly green when it comes to what it means to release an EP. You think, okay, we'll release an EP, play a show, and people will hear it somehow, but that's not really how it happens. And then just too late, kind of, we realized, you really have to put a lot of sort of thought and work behind how you release a record. Like, for example, a publicist is something that we had no idea about, and that really is something that helped us with our single this time. But it was interesting to see that this previous record did a lot with even just a little, just the slightest effort.
No, you guys did seem to grab like quite a bit of traction with that album, because you got quite a bit of features on Canadian TV and film, a couple commercials. Like, you guys actually got like a little bit of attention from that album, considering those facts.
Yeah, totally. That's been something that has been really awesome. That our songs really lend themselves to film and television, and we're actually in a songwriting residency right now with the Canadian Film Centre, which is like an incubator space for upcoming talent in film and television, and we're in a songwriting and composing residency. So it's been awesome that like our very first EP that we released landed us all these sort of placements in awesome Canadian TV shows, and then because of that we were accepted into this residency where we can just continue to go down that path. And write custom as well for film and TV.
Yeah. How surreal and how humbling is it to actually hear something that you wrote and recorded on a TV show?
It's super surreal. Especially a lot of these shows we've been fans of for a long time and watching for years. Like Heartland, for example, has been on for I think like 14 seasons now. I think they're entering their 15th. So, you know, it's amazing because the songs mean so much to us, and that it resonates for big dramatic moments with, you know, TV and film storylines is really awesome. And the feedback we get from listeners as well, and what our songs mean for their lives, it's, you know, it makes it all worth it, because it's, you know, it's a lot of hours we put in, and it's a lot of work, but it really makes it all worth it, that you can make something and it goes out and it means something to other people as well. That's like the point of it all, really, for us. So it's the best, yeah.
And it definitely just goes to show just how many different ways that your songs can be interpreted, and how many different ways that they can be shown.
Yeah, exactly, totally.
The emotions that you can, like, contribute and express through them, and the way that it just, like, clearly can also make other people connect if they're being used in big emotional parts in shows such as Heartland or Saving Hope.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, and like, in a way, like, when you release songs, they go out into the world and, like, take on their own lives. So it's been really cool to, like, follow each song's individual journey in that way.
Okay. So let's get a little bit more into the upcoming EP and things you've been working on. So the upcoming EP is entitled MaryAnn. Is it right if I presume that that would be your mother's name?
Yeah. So our upcoming EP is like a concept EP, basically about her life. So Best Time was the first single for that. We're basically... the concept is that she's singing to my dad, like, thanking him for the best time. I think it's been, you know, a journey in a sense where I think our aim is, like, to reclaim her narrative in a way, because I think when you lose someone to cancer, you can kind of get, you know, swept up in like the loss and, like, the tragedy of it. But I think it's awesome to take a step back and sort of capture a life in this way. And, you know, there's like a love song about my parents on there. It's not like a sad doom and gloom EP. It really is like, here's someone's life, and it's just really taking, like, you know, the stories I've been told before and after her death, and trying to capture that to music.
So rather than getting caught up in the emotion, and, like, I understand it, because, like, I've also had family members who have lost their lives early due to sicknesses, and it's hard because you feel like they've been robbed of time, so you almost worry about the time that they've been robbed rather than the moments that you've already created with them.
100%, and, like, I think that's really what we're trying to do with this EP, is, like, celebrate the time that we had rather than mourn the time that we have lost. And of course, you know, it's, like, important to grieve and to feel, you know, I've certainly felt robbed in times. I'm not trying to, like, sweep it under the rug in any way, but it really is just a way to say, let's celebrate, you know, 61 years of someone's life and what they left behind, and left behind forever, and will continue to, you know, they're not, you know, gone forever. They're just here in a different way. But let's sort of capture a life. And I think it's also a way for, you know, future generations of my family to, you know, hopefully listen to this and get to know my mom as well in a way they might not have otherwise.
That's really beautiful.
Thanks.
No,
thank you.
That really actually just touched me and gave me chills. Like, wow.
Oh, thanks.
Wow.
Well, I'm sure as someone who's experienced loss yourself, it's probably, you know, resonating with you. It's not a fun experience, but it's, you know, we're songwriters and we're musicians, so we're just, they say write what you know. So
okay, but
yeah.
So for that new single, Best Time, it's, like you said, it is a very, like, happy song, And what gave you the idea to try and like sing or come up for that song for your mom, like, to ease your dad, saying that she's given him like the best times ever? Because like that's really really touching.
Thank you. I don't even really know where it came from. It just kind of happened, if I'm being honest. Like, I remember the moment, like, we were just jamming and we weren't even really intending to write a song. And then the chorus actually happened first, and it just sort of spilled out of us. And that's where it all came from. It's not like we sat down and said, this is what we're writing a song about. It all just kind of happened in like that magical way that you would hope songs happen, you know, when you're just inspired and you don't even really know where it's coming from, and you just have to run with it.
It came naturally.
Yeah.
That's good. That it came from the heart then. It was meant to be.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so for the video for Best Times, you guys worked with Anna McGuire on it, and you went about receiving family videos from people all over the world. How did you guys collect the videos? Was it a social media outreach? How did you guys collect all of this? And being able to watch that and knowing that people wanted to like share their experiences with you as well, like, what was the emotions behind this video creation?
I'll answer this question because Timon was on vacation when we collected the videos. Yeah, we just basically put a call out on social media. Our director, Anna McGuire, came up with this like amazing concept. We bounced around a few ideas, but then when she said the idea of us sort of performing in front of projected images of home movies, like, we just knew that was like such a perfect idea, because although the song's about, you know, my family's journey, we really wanted to write something that wasn't so specific that it could be kind of anybody's at the same time. Like, you know, everybody's sort of thanking people for, you know, just being in their lives, as cheesy as that sounds. So we put like a little description online and then asked a lot of friends and family, and people were super receptive to it, which was amazing. And we really wanted it to be footage that was kind of from all over as much as possible, and, you know, represented different lives, because we didn't want it just to be about one family. We wanted it to sort of be a representative of just like everyday life from all sorts of different people. So we were really happy with the response and the footage we got. We got so much footage. It's so sad. We could have made like a whole other video of just home footage. Like, it was like Sophie's choice to like what to put in, but yeah, it was amazing.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then it also just goes to show that, like, just not holding it to like one relationship dynamic, because really you can share so many best times with so many people.
Yeah, and often, if I may jump in here, often is the little moments that you don't really recognize in the moment you're in them, that stick with you sometimes for a very long time, and you remember them, and they become maybe even a trigger very late, like later in later years, that kind of you know, gives you all these emotions. You're like, wow, this was such a small moment, but it means so much to me somehow. And that's why also the whole idea about the home videos of not just big moments, but even just every day, you know, playing in the backyard or whatever kind of thing, is so significant. And to recognize them, and to even like being in the moment, and to when you're in them, and to really just appreciate them for it makes, I think that's like a big thing I want to strive for in my life, to just kind of be more present, really.
I can agree with this. I can agree with this, because you don't want to look back and think that you could have done better in a situation, or you could have put more of yourself or been more involved with the things that were going on, and you want to remember everything as well as you possibly can for what it is, because And I know exactly what you mean, because, like, literally yesterday was, like, 3 years since one of my grandparents had died. It was like, and it wasn't like anything big that I'd remembered about her. It was literally like biking 2 kilometers to her house to watch Jeopardy with her and eat cookies. Like, that was the memory I had, you know? And it's just like, sometimes it's the littlest things where it's just, that'll be the thing that you remember, and it just means the absolute most to you.
Yeah, very true. Totally. Yeah. That's exactly it.
Well, I am glad that we are on the same page, and of course, I want to ask you guys all about the rest of the MaryAnn EP, what the vibe, the energy is behind that, like, what is the vision you have with the sounds and everything there, and of course, I still want to get into your Canadian Film Center residency, because that is also super cool and super crazy. But before I do that, of course, I want to go ahead and spin that new track from you guys, Best Time, for the listeners here at the DTP. And of course, before I even go ahead and do that, I want to go ahead and thank those among the DTP listeners who have gone ahead and grabbed themselves a Desert Tiger shirt. What? You haven't gone ahead and gotten yourself a Desert Tiger shirt yet? Well, didn't you know that this is the best way for you to show your support for the show? Turn a few heads as you're walking down the street and show that you are in the know with that DTP flow. That is right. That is right. And of course, if you go ahead and grab one of these shirts, you want me to call you to thank you? I'll go ahead and do that. Everyone who's pretty much picked up a shirt has gotten a handwritten thank you note from yours truly. That's how much I appreciate everyone who has gone ahead and picked up some DTP merch, because thanks to you guys, I am able to do things like release episodes of the Desert Tiger podcast for free weekly, and of course we're going to be getting into other things, other avenues, some video content, a little bit of streaming, all sorts of other fun things that you guys repping Desert Tiger is helping us continue to grow in exponential levels, and I love you so very much for it. So now that you guys have heard all about the shirts, where can you get them? Well, you can contact me at desert.tiger.podcast@gmail.com, or you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at Desert Tiger Entertainment or Desert Tiger Pod, and you can hit us up on all those platforms. Like I said on previous episodes, we are getting that online store rocking so very soon, and I will let you know exactly what the URL for that is as soon as it is up. We are sitting on a few other designs for when that website gets launched as well, so keep your eyes and ears open for when that happens, because they are pretty freaking killer. I can't wait. Alright, you guys, let's get back into this interview with Timon and Ashley, the members of In the City, but of course, this is Best Time.
I'm staring out at an ocean of love, and I'm so proud of all that we've done together. I know we might not have forever, but I still couldn't ask for better. And don't I know time moves too fast, 'cause I'm looking at my hourglass. I've learned the only thing I need is you standing next to me. Babe, I know the curtain's closing soon, doesn't mean it's over for me and you. Before it's my time to go, I just have to say, our love will never fade. Our love will never fade. Darling,
Desert Tiger Podcast.
So does the rest of the album sort of continue to have that positive vibe of going through those memories that your mother had created throughout her life?
In part, for sure. I think there's definitely a sad undertone to some of the songs, and some songs are outright sad, I would even say.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's like a full spectrum of emotions on this EP, and I think it's really important, first of all, and just representative of what it is. You know, like it's great to be appreciative and to celebrate, and it's totally important, but it's just as important to also sit with one's feelings and figure it out, and to talk about the hard part as well. You know, like it's a heavy thing, and you gotta acknowledge that. And I think that we're doing that with a bunch of those songs as well.
So, having to go through so many emotions and everything else, because people, it's just undeniable and it's unavoidable that people grow in between releasing albums and everything else. But tackling ideas like this, how has the last 2 years, and how has going through this, how has it helped you grow as individuals?
I think for me, it's made me braver. I think when you face your biggest fear, which is, you know, for a lot of people, losing a loved one, it makes everything else seem that you might have been afraid of before, like rejection, or maybe, you know, your ideas being not received well. It just makes all those like smaller fears, for me, kind of go away. So for me, it's made me braver, and I feel really purposeful with this EP, and I also feel like, you know, it's an amazing opportunity to write songs that mean so much. And that's been like the biggest growth for me in the past 2 years. I feel like I've really grown up, and just really like appreciate the everyday a lot more, and try to capture that lyrically as well. Like, it's not always like these big life moments. So yeah, being braver and more appreciative is, and I do think when you have a great loss, your heart is kind of like ripped open. So I think in this way, you're also really like way more susceptible to like the human condition, and you're a lot more empathetic. And I was always a very empathetic person to begin with. But now it's just, I think in my musicianship and songwriting, I'm just tapped into human emotion and experience like that much more. So that's been something I've noticed as well.
And how about yourself, Timon?
I guess in terms of loss, I've experienced it only through people, except, you know, I've lost my grandparents, but they've had, you know, their full life, and it is a sad moment, but it's different when you lose someone before their time, let's say. But yeah, I've basically gone through the losing through Ashley, but also through my fiancée, kind of around the same time. She lost someone very close to her, and so I've kind of experienced it through both of these people, and it makes you, you know, want to spend your time, like it makes you realize that you want to spend the time that you have on this planet, which is, you don't know how much it is, first of all, but it is really probably shorter than you think, and how do you want to spend that, really? And like Ashley was saying, it kind of makes you bolder to just kind of go for it, and it's a pretty scary thing to not necessarily be part of the rat race, to live your life and be comfortable and like have security and all that stuff. As a musician, there's always a struggle, especially when you're committing to it. because you have to make choices in a lot of ways. A lot of them are financial, obviously. So it's been scary, but yeah, you get bolder and you just decide, okay, let's try this. We're going to go for it, and I think that's what we're doing with this EP, and then with all the changes that have come about through opportunities in television, and then getting to the Canadian Film Centre, which has been a huge experience, both musically speaking, but also just opening our minds to a lot more possibility in the music world. I don't know if I answered that question right now, but I said something at least.
I think you gave a pretty good enough answer.
Yeah, okay.
It's acceptable, my friend. So, as you guys said, you are currently actually still working on this EP, so what process are you guys at right now? Are you just finishing up a couple songs? Are you just putting up a little bit of polishing? Where are we at in this process?
It's all of the above. We're finishing up 3 songs that have to be done before the holidays, so we're recording and editing all at the same time and tweaking. But the songs are, all written and ready to go. It's just about getting, nice guitar laid down and final vocals. So we're doing all of that at the moment.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So let's dive a little bit more into you guys personally. So we talked about how you guys, one's a little bit more of a singer-songwriter and one's a little bit more into, we'll say, the pop and rock side of things. So who would maybe have been your high school idols growing up? Like, who are, like, the musicians that helped you through, like, your rebellious stages or, like, those growth years? Like, who could you just, like, not live without, and who just still, like, when you listen to, just means the world to you?
I never went through, like, a really big rebellious phase. Maybe Timon did, but, yeah, I think for high school, I love Joni Mitchell. I think she's, like, one of the most talented musicians out there, and she's still, like, when I hear her songs, like, it just makes me feel at home, and there's, like, a peace that comes over. So she's definitely, like, a big influence for me. Also, high school and beyond, Fleetwood Mac, Jewel, like, kind of a mishmash between, like, singer-songwriters, but also bands that have something to say. Like, I was never super, everyone has their guilty pleasure songs, but I was never really into the bands that just make catchy music that don't really say anything. So that's why I love Fleetwood Mac. Like, their music is outstanding, but they also have really clever, interesting lyrics and tell interesting stories as well. So that's my influences.
For me, I certainly had a rebellious phase, and I guess I would say I'm a bit of a sort of rock and metal guy.
Okay.
When it comes to, the high school era. I still love bands like Deftones and Tool.
Yes.
I definitely listen to them less these days. I've become a bit more... I've gotten into more of the subtleties of music these days, and love creating soundscapes and arrangements and stuff. But yeah, there's definitely a place in my heart for bands like that. And yeah, I mean, Radiohead and losing band names right now, but that's sort of my ballpark where I come from musically, and then coming to Canada. My musical taste, I mean, it's changed. I've always listened to a lot of different stuff, even while listening to, being, like, big fan of, like, Tool and whatnot. I would listen to, I had Black and Blue by the Backstreet Boys, their whole album, and I thought it was really... I knew it was pop music and everything, but I enjoyed it a lot for the harmonies and the production. So yeah, as much as I listen to metal and everything, I listen to that kind of stuff too, and definitely got some side looks from people back in the day for that.
So you definitely have been eclectic through a lot of your musical journey then.
Yeah, I definitely would say so. It just really depends on the day or the week what I listen to. I love most things when it comes to music, yeah. As long as it's good.
No, you gotta go with what your mood is. And I mean, I, in high school, was a rock and roll and metalhead too, but I am fully willing to admit that one of the first tapes I ever owned was totally a Backstreet Boys tape, and I can still bust a mean move to it. So,
nice.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, what does a In the City live show look like? Because you guys said that you have a little bit of session musicians doing so. What exactly do you guys hold down on the stage, and who do you guys exactly have joining you? How does it all work out?
Yeah, so I would say on a general basis, we're a 5-piece: drums, bass, electric, guitar, acoustic, and vocals. I myself play acoustic guitar mostly, depending. Sometimes we have keys in there, and I do that too. Ashley focuses on vocals on stage only. And then, we have a drummer, and then our guitarist, Steve, who has been with us since the early days. And then on bass, we have Alex, who is a very talented musician and songwriter himself. And that's us mainly. And then bigger shows, we sometimes hire string players, like cello mostly. And for this EP, we actually last week recorded a string quartet, violin and viola and cello, for 2 of our tracks, and that's been a very beautiful experience. And hopefully we'll get to have that on stage with us at some point. And mostly recently, actually, we started incorporating backing tracks to just kind of fill out the sound a bit more. And that's been a really fun time. We've never really thought about that before, but it really takes the sound to a new sort of level. Not necessarily better, but it just kind of gives it a little extra. And I think if you can, why shouldn't you? You know?
Well,
it's been fun.
And there's a lot of those things that are a little bit harder to produce live and balance out with everything in that live environment.
Yeah, exactly.
Very true, yeah. Or in some cases, it can cost a lot of money to hire a string player, for example, or have an extra band member that you have to schedule for rehearsal and for shows, and then having that as a backing track can be a lot more inexpensive and also easier to schedule.
Definitely. So do you guys tour at all? Do you have plans to go across Canada in the future with the full band, or what's that part of the plan at right now?
Yeah, we'd love that. Right now, our songwriting residency goes until the spring, so we're doing a lot of Toronto-based shows and Ontario-based shows when we can. On Saturday, we're playing at the Rivoli, for example, with our full band. But outside of that, we kind of have to stay kind of pretty local until the spring for our residency when that finishes up. But we're definitely cooking some stuff. Nothing that we can say right now, but if people keep an eye on our social media, that's the best place to see where we'll be playing.
All right, awesome,
yeah,
fantastic. So, what does the future hold besides this album? Do you guys already sort of have an idea for what you guys are going to be doing on the side besides this? Once the residency comes up, besides touring, what would you guys like to do?
Well, the residency's definitely kind of opened up a new world for us. I've, been composing for film and television for a few years. Ashley, not as much, and so for her it's been quite the sort of learning curve. But it's I think for us as a band, it's become this second sort of leg that we're going to continue to follow as musicians, because it's a lucrative side of the business to make music for that world, and that'll go two ways. One, that we're going to get music licensed, or continue to get a music licensed in television and film, but also write custom songs or even scores for films. And that's something we want to pursue following this residency for sure. And we're going to be going to LA in spring for a bit to meet with people and make some contacts and connections and see what's going on over there, because that's basically the holy grail of the TV and film market. So we'll see. I think there's lots going on in the future for us in terms of music in this area.
Yeah, no, a movie score would definitely be a very cool experience.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully when you guys go down to LA, and hopefully that goes well. Hopefully you make some fantastic connections. Maybe somebody down there is listening to this when this drops. Maybe they'll hit you up when you come. Who knows?
Yeah, let us know if you know anyone we should meet.
I definitely will. So I've got one last question for you guys, but before I ask it, where can my listeners find out more about In the City?
The best place to find us is our website, which is weareinthecity.com, and from there you can see our upcoming shows, our releases, and also links to all our socials.
Fantastic. So what impact, what vision would you like to actually put forward with this new EP?
I think with writing music generally, we just want to tell stories that, mean something and matter. So for this EP, I think we're definitely doing that. The stories mean a lot to us, and they've gone out and they've meant a lot to others as well. So we want to, have a positive impact and, continue a conversation, continue a dialogue that might not be, a popular one to have. It's not like the coolest thing or sexiest thing in the world to do an EP about someone you've lost to cancer. But I think our mission is to go forward in a bold way and say, you know what, this is the life we're living, and these are the things that happen to us, and we're going to talk about them and sing about them, and hopefully it goes out and resonates with others.
All right. I love it. Thank you guys
Thank you
so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks. It's been a pleasure.
Alright, so that is all we have for this episode of the show. So first off, I want to go ahead and thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Desert Tiger Podcast with my guests in the city. If you enjoyed what you heard today, if this is your first time listening, you can go ahead and subscribe. If you've been around for a while, you can go ahead and rate and review the show, or of course you can share it on any of your social media outlets, on your pages with your friends, whoever you may think likes the show. That would help us grow oh so much, and I would be extremely thankful to you for that. Next week on the DTP, we are going to be featuring hip-hop artist and indifference visionary Marcus Huron. So until then, have yourself a great time.